Happy House Cars and stuff, and today I'm going over my Fiesta ST build for the STH class in autocross. Now, as some of you that watch the channel know, and you might be wondering why I have this on, if you don't know already, but the Fiesta is unfortunately totaled. And if you want to know more about that, go to my previous video, which I'll link down below. But that being said, the Fiesta will not be making a live video appearance in this build video, unfortunately. I will have my pictures and a bunch of other stuff related to the equipment I did have on the Fiesta at the time. But yeah, so this is the full prep STH build that I had for my Fiesta ST. So for this build, we'll begin where the production of power actually starts, the intake. Now, the intake system I had was the Mishimoto cold air intake system. It was very nicely made, it was lightweight, and had significantly larger tubing with a higher flowing inlet filter. It had its own inlet filter housing as well, which was very nice, powder coated black for me. Had inlets in the bottom and obviously the where the tubing goes in, but there was more than enough space in the housing to allow the filter to pull in all that air. It actually made a more prominent and a lot more aggressive intake tone, which is immediately noticeable as soon as you take the car out for its first drive. Now, you know, once the air goes through the intake, it goes through the turbo, which then gets compressed. Now, that compressed air needs to be cooled somehow. And to cool it off, I actually paired it with a Mishimoto intercooler. The Mishimoto intercooler has a larger surface area and just overall dimensions in general that allows for better air cooling capabilities. It doesn't really matter what piping you end up using. I was using the stock stuff for a while because of the SCCA classing. Then I eventually put on the silicone stuff that Mishimoto gave as well. But to go into specifics, I'm actually reading the Mishimoto site and it says 51% increase in core size, which is a significant difference. 25% increase in internal core volume and 226% increase in the external fin surface area, which helps quite a bit. So now, once that air gets cooled by the intercooler, it now goes to the intake ports. And what else is added along with the air from the intercooler? Spark and fuel. Now, the rules don't really allow me to adjust the fuel injectors or anything like that, so onto the spark plugs we go. And for the spark plugs, I actually use the Iridium IX plugs. It might be 9, I don't really know, don't quote me on that. It reads IX, so could be Roman numerals, probably not, I don't know. No big deal. Anyways, I got them gapped to 0.027 by Whoosh Motorsports, and I will put that link down below if you guys want to check those out as well. Now, to be able to cool off all of the heat being produced from the incredible amount of horsepower the Fist made.
Stop the cap!
I actually swapped the stock intercooler with a co-produced Mount Tune and CSF radiator. Now, I'm going to drop the link for that item as well as my Radiator review and install video for this specific radiator down below. And as a side note, a radiator and an intercooler are probably in the top 5 of items you should be, or modifications you should be getting for the Fist, hands down. Radiator is probably up there for number 1. So now that the Fiesta ST is done producing all of that horsepower it has, it created some exhaust gases along the way. So how are those going to get expelled? From the cylinders, it exits out through the manifold and consolidates into the downpipe, which I bought Whoosh Motorsports Cata downpipe, which is amazing. I will link that down below among all the other things I'm listing off in this video. And from the downpipe, it goes through the Miltech Catback exhaust I have, which I have quite a couple videos about that, which I will link down below, and also the product, which you guys probably already guessed. And let me tell you, that combination of the Whoosh Cata downpipe and the Miltech Catback exhaust I have, glorious. Like, there's no other option out there in my opinion. But to each their own. It gives a nice burbly tone. From even if you have the stock downpipe, the Catback exhaust sounds pretty awesome. It gives a nice little, a good tone to it, kind of an aggressive tone. But the burbles, they are enhanced whenever you swap out the stock downpipe for even a Cata downpipe. Like, I think the straight piping might just be a little bit too loud, in my opinion. I know all those Fiesta ST popper boys out there are probably gonna, be in the comments, but this is my preference. All right, the Cata downpipe, the Cata downpipe sounds just fine. Now, with all that horsepower being produced in the Fiesta, I needed a good suspension setup so I could balance and stabilize the car's chassis. And one of the biggest upgrades for my suspension setup was the ISC N1 coilovers. And the specific setup I had was the ISC N1 track coilovers, which I was running 6K spring rate in the front, 7K in the rear. Now this coilover setup is fully adjustable, camber top mounts, lowering, you could raise it, lower it, and it had, 32-way adjustable rebound and compression combined. So a lot of adjustability, and it is a insanely great setup. So much modulation in that, let's say a piece breaks, I don't know, something happens to a certain piece, all of the pieces come apart from each other, so you can just buy separate pieces and put it all together yourself. The customer service there is amazing as well, in the short span that I had them. So I would definitely look into ISC as your next coilover option for sure. And aside from the coilovers, which is obviously the main component of your suspension, let's be honest, to stiffen up my chassis, I actually added a rear motor mount, which is in my top 5 of must-have items for the Fiesta ST, even maybe a Focus ST, to be honest. Rear motor mount, because that just kind of makes your shifts a lot more crisp. It stabilizes the transmission a whole lot more, and really it just helps a lot. I also ended up replacing the upper motor and trans mounts with it was TurboTech Racing. You can find them on the Whoosh Motorsport side as well. As with everything else, I'm going to link it down below. But TurboTech Racing's upper motor and trans mounts were honestly great. It made an insane difference once I had these installed. I wouldn't say they're a must-have, but it will definitely make your car way more stable. The whole torque steer thing is pretty much mitigated from there. There's no torque steer, any random movement of anything in the front, which helps you handle a front-wheel drive car so much better. So had those. And I also had LCA Bushings. So LCA, if y'all don't know, it stands for lower control arm. All the lower control arm bushings were the PowerFlex bushings that you can buy from Whoosh Motorsports as well, and they helped a lot as well. I mean, my bushings were getting pretty worn just with how much I was beating on it and everything, so it was in need of replacements, and I'm so glad I went with the stiffer race ones because, again, it helped with decreasing torque steer and increasing the handling of the car. I had to get adjustable Endlinks when I got the coilovers, just so that you can properly corner balance the car and you can maintain the use of your sway bar in the front. If you don't have the adjustable Endlinks, you won't be able to, you might be able to run the stock Endlinks, but it will add a ton of preload to your sway bar, which you do not want at all. And to finish off with the suspension portion, I added a white line rear sway bar to the rear of the Fiesta. Now, it's not necessarily an actual sway bar because the Fiesta doesn't have a sway bar in the rear. It's got a twist beam, so that's already a bar in and of itself. The sway bar is just another metal beam that adds stiffness, but if you want rotation, get a sway bar in the rear. Now that the suspension is dialed in, it's time to focus on something else. Something that kills the front wheel drive. And that is one wheel peel. And to mitigate the one wheel peel, I added a WaveTrack limited slip differential. And let me tell you, once you drive a front wheel drive car with a limited slip vice open diff, you will never want to drive a car front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, all wheel drive maybe, sure, without a limited slip ever again. It just makes the car handle amazingly. Front wheel drive, it makes it feel like it's pulling like an all wheel drive car almost. I mean, out of corners, like, you don't lose power to the outside anymore, where, you know, with an open diff you lose, when it starts slipping, you get more power to the inside vice the outside. Case in point, the limited slip is a must-have, and it'll change the whole dynamic of the car. and the fun of it. You will love your car so much more. You'll have a ton more fun. And since there's no more power being cut to the outside wheels, now that I have the LSD, I went with a very solid tire setup for the car. And that tire and wheel setup consisted of 245 by 40 R15 tires in the front. They were 200 tread wears. I ended up running Falcon RT660s, front and rear. But the fronts were, like I said, 245 by 40 R15s. The rears were 225 45 R15s. And those, all four of them were wrapped around the 15 by 8 Team Dynamic Pro Race 1.2s. Those are extremely hard to find from when I last looked. They were made in the UK. I don't even know if they make them anymore, but they are a bomb-ass wheel. So if you could find them, get them. Now, for that setup to work, I had to use 5mm spacers in the front and get pretty much as much camber as I could in the front as well. I also had it lowered pretty well. I think I had maybe like an inch or so of clearance in the front and the rear between the fender and the tire. But it's a nice stance, as you can see, and yeah, can't go wrong with that. A lot of grip, but not enough tire to fit in an STH class, I'm being honest. Now, aside from the suspension and the tires and the LSD, I had to do something once I upgraded the vehicle, and that something is tune the car. Now, with the tuner I used two technically. I ended up using JST in the end, but I did have a dyno tune with Crucial Motorsports out in Orlando. That was an excellent tune, but when I moved out to California, I had to use a 91 octane tune, so I went with JST, and I have no regrets whatsoever. JST, Brian over there does a fantastic job. If you don't have them already, I recommend giving them just a shot, because Brian runs a awesome company there and the tunes are wonderful. And the final thing you cannot forget about this crucial part of the car is something that when you get more power and you increase your handling and your tires and all this stuff, what are you going to do when you have to stop the car? You're going to get some good brakes. Now, in this aspect of the car, I added EBC slotted rotors and EBC yellow stuff brake pads. I have nothing but great things to say about the yellow stuffs. I had them even before I had the EBC slotted rotors. I love their bite. Like, they have a great initial bite. They're very predictable. Really no heat fade from what I've gathered. I even took them out on the West track over at Thunderhill West, and the whole day never had any fade. I mean, they got hot, obviously, brakes get hot, but those yellow stuffs paired with the EBC slotted rotors, fantastic braking system right there. It helps that, you know, the Fist is a fairly light car, so that's good there too. Very manageable brakes. So guys, that's the build video for my now totaled Fiesta ST that I ran in STH Autocross class. If you like the video, please like it. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Feel free to subscribe if you're not yet, and ring the bell so you can be notified when I have new content. Alright, I have some stuff I have planned because of the arm and other things. I'm trying to figure out, you know, the insurance and all sorts of other crap right now. I'll be uploading infrequently. Depends on what I end up doing. I do have some plans, but we'll see when I get there. So anyways guys, in the meantime, enjoy one of the videos in the top left and top right. Have a good one.